Hello and welcome, guys, to another episode of the Fabricio with Their podcast show, the Fair One podcast. John Wayne asks, Pereira uses body jab to set up the lead hook. What can Jerry do to counter? Should he meet him head on and hunt with a strike whilst Alex is jabbing to the body? I don't think the problem is, dude, that it's not like Alex just uses the body jab to set up their lead hook. So there's a lot of different things that Alex does, and a big part of Alex's game is his leg kicks, and I think that that's what's going to play the biggest part in, amongst other things, going to play a big part in this fight because Jiri's heavy on that lead leg, and Alex is going to hit him. So it's not like he just uses a body jab and that's it. There's a lot of things that he does, man, and he hits you and he hurts you with different things. So yeah, so there's a lot of different stuff that he does. Nathan Gorman says, thoughts on Tony Ferguson throwing up while training with David Goggins? Surely if you throw up through exhaustion, then you're doing something wrong. I don't know. I can't really comment on that. I don't know anything about that at all, what he's doing or his training or anything like that. Kenzo Tenma says, Islam wants to fight in March, but UFC has O'Malley on UFC 299 as the official main event, which means Islam versus Charles will be co-main. If UFC does this, have they made a mistake by not making it main? I don't know if they made a mistake. They're obviously pushing O'Malley very hard, for the US audience and a lot of international audience. And O'Malley is very charismatic, speaks well on the microphone, understands the game, understands the stuff that he has to do outside of fighting to build his brand. Whereas Islam is more, he seems to be more happy to come fight, get his money, and then go home and live in Dagestan, and although he's got heaps and heaps of followers, but I think that they're really pushing for O'Malley. So I don't know if it's a mistake. I don't necessarily think that. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but probably more casual fans are going to watch O'Malley versus Islam and Charles. I'm thinking, I don't know. I definitely like watching Islam and Charles. I think that that's a very high level fight. No disrespect to O'Malley and Vera. Pepgard said, how was Khabib able to control people on the ground with ease? What were the little details that made the difference that people wouldn't notice? I think one is the depth. Like, people don't understand this, the depth of talent that comes out of those areas. Let's say Russia, for example, the Caucasus in general, in particular Dagestan, in particular Chechnya. This is the hotbed. The Caucasus are the hotbed for so Armenia or Georgia, all of those places are hotbed for grappling and combat sports. So generally, when you have a guy that gets to the top in one of those respective arts, whether it's judo, wrestling, but wrestling is their thing, or sambo, you're going to have a very good end product. He's like he's the cream that has risen to the top, so to speak. That's number one. Number two is he uses his legs more effectively than a lot of people for controlling. So he's not gassing his arms out in the same way that you see a lot of people when they try and hold someone down. They're using their arms and their upper bodies for the isometric contraction. This allows him to be able to do it for longer. So he controls the hips and he controls the legs. And he does that with his own legs rather than trying to hold people with their upper body. And then he just is really aware of where he has to be in relation to you and what you have to do next. And then he just beats you to those positions every single time. So, for example, he knows, everyone knows this, but it's his ability to just, boom, be ahead of you. So he takes you down. He knows you've got a post. So he takes that post from you. If eventually you get that post back on you, the whole time he's been getting his head above you, because whoever's on the cage in particular, elevation wins. Whoever's head's high is going to win. So he gets his head above yours. He takes your posts away from you. And he's doing this constantly. So he's always a step or two ahead of you. This makes things very, very difficult. But you can't fast track that. We're talking about guys that have competed in judo or wrestling or grappling sports, plus probably had 200-300 amateur combat or pro combat sambo matches, 200 or 300 of them. Like the wealth of experience that's there is pretty big. Death Note says, thoughts on Masvidal being cleared of all charges on the Colby sucker punching incident which happened last year? I'm not a solicitor, man, so I don't know. But as far as I understand, he took correct me if I'm wrong. He took a plea deal. He took a thing. So I'm not sure. Like I don't know what happened there. Um, Mario Gomez says Khabib finished Conor, Dustin, and Gaethje, but was unable to finish Al Quinta and was never close to submitting him. What did Al do on the ground to survive Khabib's submission and ground and pound? I think a lot of the times it's styles make matchups too. You know, like at the time, right? At the time, I thought Al would be a difficult kind of opponent. But let's be clear, though. Let's be clear. Just because you don't finish someone, it doesn't like Alo Quinta wasn't ever really, no disrespect, I like him, but he wasn't ever in the fight like that. Like I'd say that all three of those guys had better moments in the fight than Alo Quinta. Just kind of it was still neutralized. It wasn't like a close fight, you know what I mean? But I think that Al has tidy boxing and he has decent wrestling and knowledgeable with his submission. So I think that already, you know, he's well rounded. You know what I mean? But having said that, I don't think he was never in the fight. He was never close to winning. So I don't think that he did a fantastic job either. You know what I mean? It was just that it went 5 rounds. Jordan Martinez says fighters today are way more well-rounded than 10 years ago. Do you expect in 10 years time even more evolution, or will there be a ceiling as to how well-rounded MMA fighters can be? I think that more so than just being well-rounded, you're just going to see better and better and better athletes coming into the fight game. You know, this is just bigger and better guys. Like, for example, you're talking about, say, a Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is gigantic, you know, and he can box. You know, people say, oh, no, it's Francis Ngannou, blah, blah, blah. Dude, Tyson Fury, take nothing away from him. He's gigantic. Ngannou is fucking gigantic. They're both huge men, you know, but Tyson Fury is 6'9", you know, 85-inch reach. I don't know, weighs 120, 130 kilos. Huge, huge man. Huge man. If you put him, like people don't understand that. Like there wasn't like back in the day. It's you can't say it because it's almost sacrilegious to say it. But if you put him back in the day to box, like this guy would have been like a freak of nature. If you put Shaq in the NBA in like even the 80s, like he would he'd look like an alien, you know. Like it's not just the new things, it's not the new moves that you're doing. There'll be higher level of athletes that are able to do different things, you know, not so that will evolve the sport for sure. There'll be guys that, because for now, for example, if you're a kid wrestling in Dagestan, right, the chances of you making the Russian national team are slim. So you had guys leaving Russia and competing for whatever country, you know, like you see their names and that. There's a lot of them. Now there's a viable option that, you know, you'll all go into combat sambo or something like this. But now you know that, hey, you know what? I'm ranked 15th in Russia. There's no chance. I'm not gonna win an Olympic gold medal. I could go wrestle for another country or something like this. But now you realize, like, dude, I could stay in Dagestan. And I could fight. And the amount of money they make in Dagestan, it was I looked it up before, but it was something like 5 to 10 grand a year, average annual in Dagestan. Bear with me. So, yeah, it was something like, yeah, it was not Russia. Like it was like something. It was very low. Yeah, it's like 10 grand or something a year, like in Dagestan. Which, if you can fight at it in the US and earning US dollars, or in another country, you can make money, you can make a living. So I think you're gonna start seeing more and more high level guys coming out of those countries and out of Georgia, out of Iran, out of like a lot of guys from those wrestle heavy countries or from combat sport type of countries. You're going to see a lot and a lot more out of them, especially because it's a little bit different to, say, for example, say basketball, right? You play in the NBA or you're playing the Euro League, and then there's a couple of other leagues, but you're already not like, there's a big jump down. Like NBL in Australia You can make a living. If you're one of the top guys, you earn good money. But if not, it's not big money. But then the problem is you got to live here and you got to live in Sydney and spend Sydney money. And Sydney is one of the most expensive cities in the world. Whereas you could live in Dagestan, and if you can make 150 grand a year, American, you'll be living like, dude, you'll be living very, very, very well, or in Iran or in a million other countries. So I think that that's what you're going to start seeing with the evolution of the sport. And people don't really understand what that level is. You don't see a lot of guys that at that level transition in their prime. You just don't see it. Like you just don't, because they're after the Olympics. I think now you're going to see the top end athletes that are already going, no, I'm going to fight in the UFC. I'm top tier. Maybe they go, I'm going to win World Juniors or I'm going to win World Seniors at 2021. If next year's an Olympic year, I'm going to go to the Olympics. If it's not an Olympic year, I'm going to MMA at 21, 22. And that's I think the biggest evolution is people don't understand. Like, I've been to all those places. I've been to World Juniors. I've been to World Seniors. I've watched all those matches. I've coached people to train and compete at that level. And that level's not normal. It's not like you're not. People don't understand this. Like, that it's fucking a high level. So that's my thoughts on that. Jordan Martinez. Light Yagami says, what are the benefits of winning the outside foot battle? Is it simply to get a better angle for a better, cleaner strike? In a nutshell, it just creates an angle where you can hit the person, but they can't hit you. You're outside of the foot. I can throw a jab and you have to punch across your body to hit me, and it's hard to do that. That's in a nutshell. That isn't to say that there aren't guys that can do things from it, but that's in a nutshell. Madara Uchiha says, when Hawani interviewed Masvidal, he said he wants to smack up Colby. What do you make of this, considering he had 25 minutes to put hands on Colby but couldn't? Yeah, I think they're two different things, though. Like, he may want to hit him. He may not like him personally. It's on a personal level. And Colby beat him in a fight. And Colby will probably beat him most times in a fight. But they're two different things. Max Jamil says, why is it that when fighters throw leg kicks, they are vulnerable to counter straights? Is there a solution to this, especially inside leg kicks? I think a lot of that is your timing, how you do that. You know what I mean? How you time it, the kick itself, whether you're throwing naked kicks or not, whether you're throwing from. A lot of these guys are kicking from a punching range. Like Chimaev is a guy that I think of, comes to my mind right off the bat. He's kicking from punching range, and people step in. So when you're kicking, they step in. So feinting the kicks, getting them off their timing, you timing yours, getting the weight off their legs so you can kick them, or getting the weight onto the legs so you can kick them, are big things. If you just kicking a dude while, with no feints or anything, and he gets your timing, he's going to counter you. Harith says, did Khabib revolutionize MMA grappling? Hold on a second. Did Khabib revolutionize MMA grappling, or did he just add some new things that older MMA grapplers did? But because he was more famous, he got more credit for it, like hooking the legs and wrist control. I think Khabib was so effective at doing it. I think Khabib was a guy that did it and won titles with it and looked good doing it, and came about at a time when like a lot of there's so much media on it. But I would say to you, like, there were guys because the thing is, what he's doing is basically doing leg laces as well with his legs. So there are guys that have done that in the past. They're just nowhere near as successful as him. But he's definitely a guy that showed you what will happen to you if someone gets on top of you and they can hold you down, and like what the level can be. I think he's one of the guys that's showing that to you. Like, that's why you think of people like what's his name, Bo Nickel, and guys like that. If they can apply their level of grappling to MMA, it's going to be a different level again. This guy was under 23 world champion, US Open winner, finalist for to make the Olympic team, lost only to the gold medalist in David Taylor. His wrestling level is different level. It's a different level to what you can expect. Can he apply it in MMA? We'll see, but when you start seeing people like that, their level of control is just, it's ridiculous. It's not even, you can't you can't explain it. Nathan Gorman says, you mentioned Edwards will stop Colby with elbow to the head, but those types of finishes rarely happen. In my opinion, Tony had the sharpest elbow, and even he couldn't finish his fights with him. So how will Leon? I don't necessarily think that he will finish Colby. I think that he will cut him. I do think that he will cut him. What that will do will more than likely stop him coming forward with impunity, is what I think will happen. I don't necessarily think he'll cut him and that'll be the wrap there and then. I think he'll cut him, and that's going to start to make a different fight, if you will. Because I don't see, you can't come through, just keep going through and take the cuts that Leon, because Leon does cut people with his elbow. He uses that left elbow really, really well. And I see him doing that to Colby, because you can't just go forward with impunity if somebody's cut you open or there's a risk of being cut open like that. And I think that's what he'll do. John Wayne says, is Frankie Edgar being champ at lightweight one of the most impressive achievements, considering how small he was at lightweight? It's incredible, dude. And one of the things that people don't realize is the dude, at like the smaller you go, like when Demetrius Johnson fought Dominic Cruz, the smaller you go, the more the size matters. You know, like 2 kilos, 3 kilos. When you're little guys, like if you're 57 kilos, that's what flyweight is, and the dude is 62 kilos. This in a different division. He's in bantamweight, and that's 5 kilos. It's not like heavyweight. There's 5 kilo difference all the time they fight. There's no big difference. Frankie Edgar's a bantamweight, really, when you look at him. Mario Gomez says, are the Diaz brothers overrated? I feel like they've only been a few good fighters, and everyone talks about like they were the best fighters the human race ever saw. Laugh out loud. I don't know if people talk about them like they're the best that they ever saw. I don't think that at all. But I do think that they're definitely fan favorites. They definitely have a big following. They fight hard, man. They do fight hard, and you see that in them. And I think that's what draws people to them. Like they're kind of like incidentally funny, it's incidental. Like they don't go out there. It's not scripted. I think Nate's got more of a knack for it, and he's got a bit more of a following. But Nick Diaz was very real, man. He's very raw, and I think that apart from the fact that he can fight, makes you follow him. Like he's a very real person. I've met them both in real life, actually, and Nick, they won't remember me or anything like that, but both of them are like really genuine people. Like not even surprisingly, but very, very genuine, very just real people. They're not. There's a lot of guys, dude, that pretend that they're nice. Do you know what I mean? And they'll do the whole, hey, how are you? And they'll be all nice and that, but different. These guys have more genuineness to them, and it comes out. I think that's what draws people to them. Thoughts on John Jones by Kenzo. Thoughts on John Jones calling Helwani a backstabbing shit talker because Ariel tried stirring the pot with Jones and Garner when he interviewed Francis last week. I think I'm not sticking up for Ariel here. I'm not thinking, but you got to understand who you're dealing with when you deal with anyone, right? Like if you're dealing with a guy that's like I don't know, man, like a money guy, like a stockbroker or something like that, and then you walk off from that interaction with him going, this guy only cares about money. He's a money hungry grub. And dude, the guy, that's all he does 18 hours a day. You know what I mean? That's all he cares about, stocks. And the rest of his had 3 divorces. He's 38 years old. His life's a mess, but he, drives a Lamborghini. That's what he wants to do. Different values to you, but you got to understand who you're talking to. And if you don't understand that, all not just Helwani, dude, not just Helwani, all those broadcaster, journalist types, whatever, they're all about their views, their show, where everyone that. So, he's got a job to do. So you got to understand that that's his angle and that's his thing. And that's what he's going to do. Max Jamil says, there are videos of Khabib taking down Luke Rockhold and controlling him. Do you think he missed a chance of exchanging his legacy by not moving up to 170. No, I think that at 170 he would lose a lot of his mechanical advantages, like against guys like Kamaru and that. I would not like training videos, dude. You can't, you can't, you can't just like you don't know what's happening, what point they are at in their lives as well. Like Luke Rockhold could be coming down to fight, and Khabib hasn't got a fight coming up, and so Khabib's walking around at 85 plus, 85 kilos plus 185 plus pounds, and Luke Rockhold's at 195 3 weeks out. You know what I mean? I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I am saying like this happens all the time. And I'll tell you something else. Like what happens in training and what happens in training on video, you don't know what that was done for. Do you know what I mean? You don't know if that video is Rockhold working on something, knowing that he's being filmed, knowing that Khabib's going to look good by doing that and their mates, and that this is what happens. So I don't give too much credence to that. That isn't to say that I don't think that Khabib could do very well at 170. I do think he could. I absolutely do think he could. But I do think that he'd lose some of the mechanical advantage. The same way that Volkanovski does really, really well at 145. Would he do well at 155? Absolutely. Does he lose some of the mechanical advantage going into 155 that he has at 145? 100%. 100%. Jordan Martinez says, what should the criteria for fighters going to the Hall of Fame? DC slammed the idea of Jim Miller going in. Should it only be champions that go in, or is Cerrone and Jim Miller going in okay? Well, this is the problem there. I think they're bad examples because Jim Miller, to me, I'd have to look it up, but I won't even bother looking it up. But I think Jim Miller, he's got like the most wins or the most fights or something like this. Like he's achieved milestones in the sport, and so did Cerrone. Again, most fights, most finishes, some shit. I don't know what it was, but something like that. So why not? You know what I mean? Why not? If it's only champions, that thing, but I'm pretty sure that it's not only champions. I think it's people that have reached milestones. I personally don't really care. I don't have a horse in the race. Jim Miller, I don't know. I've met him, another guy who's a really nice guy. But I haven't got a horse in that race. Like I don't really care. Madara Uchiha says Conor vs Khabib still has a record for the most pay-per-view buys with 2.4 million. Do you think there's a fight that could eventually break that? I think probably at some point, yes. But having said that, I think that Conor and Khabib for a long time, I think this will be the case. Khabib was what he was, right? He's a legit monster freak generational fighter that you go, holy shit, I just witnessed something, you know what I mean? And he had a charisma about him too, like a very like stoic, but very like, I mean what I say and I say what I mean, kind of dude, and very honorable dude. And Conor is a marketing genius, he also fell into the situation that he was in, but and he played the heel man, and Khabib played his part. But the difference as well is both these guys could fight, and it was for a legitimate title. So that perfect storm is hard to beat, I think. And there's so many things that made it a polemic situation, so many things. I think there were cultural issues, there were like religious backgrounds, differences. There's so many different things that made it. You were with Khabib or you were with Conor. It made you, because it was such a polarizing fight, it made you a striker versus grappler. There was so many things that made it polarizing, champion versus challenger, like legitimate things that made you go, okay, I'm into this fight. That's hard to reproduce. Harris says, how important is physical strength in MMA? Because there was a time when most champions were just bulls in compared to the rest of the division, like Khabib, Sterling, Islam, Volk, Usman, Woodley, GSP, etc. Strength is an overriding factor in every sport. It doesn't mean you're going to be always the strongest guy is going to win, but it's a relative thing. Like the strength, matters. It's an overriding factor. You know, if you're not strong, the guys are just gonna fucking pancake you. You know what I mean? Like you can't like. There's you'd have to like when strength has influence on your cardiovascular fitness. You know, it requires less effort for you to do things the stronger you are. You know, so I was doing a master's of high performance sport, and this was one of the subjects. That's why I can answer that. Like it's yeah, strength is the number one overriding thing, you know, because especially mano a mano sports like that, it's you can't. It doesn't mean that the strongest, like, because then you got to understand something else. People go, yeah, but you see, if a big guy, no, a big guy, right? All things being equal, is going to beat a little guy. It's only when a little guy is way better than the big guy that it's going to help you. Otherwise, it's not going to help you. Like you have to be a lot better to a lot. You need a lot of technique to overcome strength. This is huge. Pep Guard says, how much CTE did Volk potentially get from the head kick? Is Usman's KO from Edwards a gauge that head kick might not be career ending, considering Usman performed well in his last two fights? I don't think a head kick necessarily has to be career ending, but it does affect you, dude. It definitely affects you. And I think that further to that, you have to understand not all fucking head kicks are created equal. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to knock you out. Sometimes people get beat up. They don't get knocked out. They get beat up. Like Bruno Silva was never the same after the fight with Pereira, but he was one of the few guys to survive the fight with Pereira, but he was never the same. He took shots in that fight that messed him up, dude. I could see it, you know, happening. So I don't think that in and of itself will be a problem. And going back to what I said about no two head kicks are created equal. My Trent Griffin story, the kid that trains with us, is fucking this guy is honestly worth his own show. He's always got his thing. The other day, this was 2 days ago. He's competing tomorrow in a jiu-jitsu comp. This is no bullshit, no word of a lie. On Thursday, I get a phone call, right, from him. I see his name on my phone. I pick it up. I say, hey, Trent, what's going on? And he goes, listen, man, I won't be into training today. But he doesn't talk like that. He talks like Crocodile Dundee kind of thing, right? But anyways, he says to me, I got hit by a 5-ton excavator. I said to him, are you in hospital? Are you dead? What's going on? And he goes to me, nah. He has, I had a hard hat on. He has, and I would just bent down to get something, and the thing turned around and hit him. And he just happened to be like kind of curled up in a ball and it hit him in the head and knocked him out. And then he came back to training on Friday. He was repeating what he said. He was obviously concussed. I didn't let him roll hard with people. But my point of the matter is, if that excavator had hit him 1 centimeter in any direction, if it had hit him more on the leg or something, he would have lost his leg. If it had hit him flush in the face, it would have killed him. It was a 5-ton excavator. He's competing on Sunday. Do I recommend that people go and get themselves hit by a 5-ton excavator? No. So all shots are not the same, you know. Bear in mind, like neither one of those guys have taken a lot of knockouts before. Like Volkanovski got stopped before once in his career by actually a friend of mine and probably a friend of his now, Corey Nelson, stopped Volkanovski back in the day in Australia, and then Volkanovski went on a 20-0 win. Corey Nelson, shout out to Corey, should have fought in the UFC, but he didn't. But he's like a proper good fighter. Anyways, he knocked or stopped Volkanovski with a knee, I think. And then Volkanovski had lost in 20 fights. You know, it's not like Volkanovski has been taking knockouts. You know, he's taken a few shots, but he's very strong, man. He can take, he's very well built to take damage as well. Death Note says, when Tony was on his 12-fight win streak, he looked unstoppable, but now he looks like he can't win a fight. How does a world-class fighter have the opposite momentum in his career? Is it his fighting style? I think the number one thing is age, man. It catches up to you, and then age exacerbates all the other things. age exacerbates your fighting style. It also brings out points that you might have got away with the hubris of youth that you didn't fix because you didn't have to. You could take punishment, when you were younger that you can't take anymore. You can take punishment in training that you can't take anymore. So all of these things, age is a contributing factor and one of the major factors as to like what you can and can't do. Let's see. If Cheetah implements the same kicking game versus O'Malley in the first fight, how does Sugar counter it considering it works so well for Cheetah? I think he's going to be well aware of that. Checking kicks is going to help immensely. There's ways to check kicks as well. Like you don't have to check the kick at 45 degrees and go shin to shin. You can check once or twice. If you check like almost like at a 90-degree angle like this, it feels like you're not going to check the kick, but you're taking your shin or your knee on their foot. They're not going to kick you like that anymore. That's one. Number two is kick with a kicker. The more O'Malley kicks, the harder it is for Cheeto to just kick him. Because Cheeto has to either get out of the way, disrupt his rhythm. He has to check your kicks. He has to do something with his legs other than just kick your legs with impunity. So I think he's just going to skirt the outside of the octagon, land jabs, land kicks, land front kicks up the middle, that kind of things. And that's going to take away from Cheeto's kicking game. Jordan Martinez says, how will DDP defend himself from the striking pressure of Strickland? This is an interesting thing because there's two things, I think. Number one is, if you watch a Cannonier fight, I think there are some similarities between Cannonier and DDP in that they hit hard and they come forward. And this is a problem for Strickland because Strickland wants to go forward and he doesn't hit super hard. That makes things difficult. So I think that that's what he'll do. He can come forward. He can wrestle. He will try and wrestle Sean offensively. And he'll come forward on Sean. And he'll throw big shots. And he can mix it up. He can kick and punch and all of that stuff. And I think my pick is Strickland. Right? I pick Strickland because I think that DDP might be able to do that for 3 rounds. Right? I don't know that he can do that to Sean for 5 rounds. And I think that Sean learned a lot in that Cannonier fight because I thought Strickland won. I'm not angry about the decision. It was a close fight, but I thought Strickland won. But I think he's learned a few little things, like just a couple little things, and that's why I picked Strickland. But I think that that's what DDP will do. DDP will come forward, and he's going to throw big shots. He's going to try and mix it up. He's going to wrestle, and that's going to stop Sean from coming forward. Light Yagami says, what do you think of Volk fighting in February? I feel like 4 months after getting KO'd isn't enough time to recover, especially coming back to fight a hammer in Topuria. I think Volkanovski explained why he needed to fight, you know what I mean? And so it is what it is. I personally, but there's also a time frame on his fight career. Do you get what I mean? There's also a time frame. He's 34, 35 years old. He doesn't have like unlimited time. He needs to have his fights. You know, he can't take a year and a half off either. So that's another factor. Kenzo said, should DDP try to wrestle with Strickland or can he win this fight on the feet? I think either or, but I think he will wrestle. I do think he will wrestle. Madara says, could DDP versus Strickland become like Strickland versus Cannonier, to which Jared's power overwhelms Strickland pressure with loads of strikes, considering DDP hits hard too? That's what I was saying earlier. I kind of spoke about that a second ago, Madara. Nathan Gorman says, what type of game plan do you think Topuria will have for Volk? And do you think Volk will be hesitant to strike with Ilya? I don't think he'll be hesitant to strike with Ilya. But I think Ilya's just going to do what Ilya does. And I think he's going to throw a few more kicks to stop Volk being able to control that kicking range and to control the kicking game. So I see him throwing more kicks than usual because you can't just check kicks. You have to kick. And you saw it even with Max Holloway I think it was the second fight. Volk in the first fight kicked him in the legs, just kicked him and kicked him and kicked him and kicked him. In the second fight, I think they coined the term Muay Thai Max because he came out and he checked the kicks, but he didn't just check the kicks, he kicked as well. Because you can't just check the kicks. You got to kick. And I think that's what Ilya should do anyways. Death Note says, where do you rank Dustin Poirier in all-time lightweights? I feel like he's one of the best despite not winning the belt. He's fought everyone. I think he's fought everyone, but we do have a thing where we have short memories, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to think at lightweight, are there guys that are put above Dustin Poirier? Right off the top of my head, man, I don't know, man. I don't know because I feel Charles is better, Islam's better, Khabib is better. Probably Gaethje I'd rate above him. BJ Penn, like prime BJ Penn. I don't know, man. It's hard to say. He's definitely up there. He's definitely up there, but I don't know if he's where he sits in it. Mario Gomez says, does Ariel do too much to create hatred between fighters, but then plays a victim card when he gets called out for it? For example, recently Jamal Hill broke ties with him and called him out for it. I think it's one of those things, man. You play the game that you're suited for, and you're going to win some that way and you're going to lose some that way. You know what I mean? And so I don't think is a wrong or is a right. Like he plays his cards, he does that thing. And I think the fighters know what he does and other people know what he does. If you want to risk it, go on his show because he's got a big platform. It's not just him that does it, man. It's not like there's a lot of people that he just does it very blatantly. You know what I mean? But I think there's a lot of people that do that. And so if you want to play that, that's fine. It's like if you want to fight, you got to understand one of the risks is getting knocked the fuck out, and this can happen, and he does that exact same thing. So, you know what you're getting into with him. Just a sec. I'm back, people. So you know what you're getting into when you're dealing with him. It's not like you shouldn't be really surprised. And he's doing his thing, man, trying to, John Wayne says, in the Middle East, the future of hosting combat sports like Saudi Arabia and UAE with these big boxing fights and more UFC events. They're the ones that bankrolled ADCC, the jiu-jitsu, submission grappling and all of that wouldn't be even close to what it is without them. You know what I mean? Now you can say, oh, no, somebody else would run it. But probably there's a lot of money in the Middle East, man. And there's different rules over there too. Harris says, as Nate Diaz made a mistake by leaving the UFC with no clear path for opponents now. Plus, he says he will never fight for a lower promotion like the PFL. The thing is, dude, you got to understand, Nate Diaz is not young anymore. He's like 30. I'm going to say 35 or something like this. Let me see, since we're talking about Nate, who I'm a massive fan of. Yeah, he's like 38 years old, right? If he stays in the UFC, he's not going to be like, if he stays at welterweight or a light, he's not going to really make lightweight in a healthy manner comfortably anymore. Do you know what I mean? And so if he fights at welterweight, these are the young big hitters that are in those divisions. He's not going to go and fight for the title or anything like this anymore. Whereas if he leaves the UFC and he can get fights like the Jake Paul fight or something like this, which he did, then it's smart. It's good for him. If he wants to keep fighting, he's close to 40. I don't recommend it, but yeah. And it makes sense for him not to fight in the PFL or something. Like, that's not unless he gets paid a truckload of money. Pep Guard says, with 3 title fights booked pre-UFC 300, does this clear the path for Conor to headline UFC 300 with no UFC title belts in the line as a co-main, or should they have the title fights as co-main as well? I don't know. But the thing you got to remember with Conor is if he decides that he wants, whether you like this or not, whether you agree with it or not, it's beside the point. If he decides to fucking main event fight night card in Guam, the UFC will market it. He will market it, and everybody will watch it. So UFC 300 for him, yes, I think it clears a path for him. Throughout says, oh, well, too late to ask a question. All the backlog already. See you next stream, uncle. Hey, mate. Hey, don't be like that, Throughout. Come back. Come back, mate. What are you doing? Sufi Mir says, hey, coach, do you view the fight with DDP versus Sean something similar to Jared versus Sean? We might also see DDP mix it up with the wrestling too. I do. Like I've said it before. We spoke about it earlier in the thread, but the difference is I think that Cannonier is a little bit more plodding. Like he's a bit more plodding. He's got some good leg kicks and some good boxing, whereas DDP is definitely more dynamic than Cannonier. But I do think that Cannonier is tidier. So they're a little bit different. I see it being a similar fight in that it'll be hard for Sean to walk DDP down, especially early in the fight. The stuff that DDP does requires a lot of energy and a lot of strength early on. So will he slow down in those 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds? It's going to be interesting. Ice Out says, what's up, Fab? How are you, boss? I'm good, mate. How are you? Ice Out says they have been at war for hundreds of years. James R says, g'day, fellas. SG says, greetings, Fab. James R says, hey, Fab, do you have any stickers on your car like BJJ or Muay Thai stickers? Whenever I see them in traffic, I immediately stop my road rage. I have a sticker on my car, but it's only about my gym, and you wouldn't be able to tell what it is. It looks like the Billabong surfing sticker. It says Portal Jiu-Jitsu on it, but you wouldn't look at it and go, oh, that's a jiu-jitsu sticker or something. You wouldn't be able to pick it out. I'm not that kind of cat. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to have like all those stickers and all shit all over my car. Nothing against people like that. I'm not like that. So I have like, it's probably this big, the sticker, like a little like sticker thing. And like I said, it just looks like the Billabong thing. You wouldn't go, oh, jiu-jitsu thing. Like, because we live in a small town, all the guys in the small town, the girls that train there, and they have that sticker, everyone's like, oh, that's from the gym. But it's not like an outwardly, like, in your face sticker thing. Lydian, the people's champ, he's back. How are you, Lydian? Thank you, sir. You're a champion. Fab, you're the man. Have to run, but saw you were live and had to say what's up. When will you be live next? Tomorrow, sir, for the fights. Lydian. Thank you so much, my friend. Guys, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell and join us tomorrow for the fights. Sorry, guys. Nathan Gorman says, what do you think makes a great coach both in camp and in the corner on fight day? Well, I think there's the number one thing, right? There's studies being done on all of this, just like with teachers, therapists, all of that stuff is you got to give, your subject content, like, you have a knowledge, right? You have to have knowledge. This is a given, right? To take that out of it, because the knowledge thing, there's heaps of people on that. So you do have the knowledge, it's a given. But number one is the relationship you have with people. If you think back to teachers you had at school that you did really well with, usually you had a good relationship with that teacher. You liked the teacher. And so you did well in that subject, particularly if you have an affinity for that subject. If you have an affinity for the subject and you like the teacher, you're gonna do well. Now, It doesn't mean that teachers have or coaches have to do stuff to make you like them. No, you just have to recognize as a coach. I think this is just my opinion. I have to recognize what my limitations are, and there are things that I'm not gonna. I not only am I not going to compromise with, I can't compromise with them. It's a relationship. You have to understand this. It's a relationship. The same way that there's things with my wife that I would not compromise with. I just would not be okay with, and we wouldn't be together if that was the case. And it might be different from me to somebody else to somebody else. No one's wrong, no one's right. It just is what it is, and vice versa, right? If you can understand that, and you can understand yourself, and you understand what you will accept and what you won't accept in that relationship, you're going to go far, because you're going to deal with people that you can get the most out of, and it'll have a timeline. There'll be a beginning and there'll be an end, and that's no one's fault. And a lot of times people can't understand that. They don't get that. Relationships have, relationships always have a beginning and an end. Sometimes you just renew each other and you keep going and it works great, but you have to understand what your limitations are and who you are, number one. And then on fight day, you have to be organized. You have to be able to keep your emotions in check. And you have to be about, in my opinion, but everyone's different, dude. And that's why it goes back to the first point, because what I think is necessary might not be what somebody else thinks is necessary. And you're not going to be cool with it, So that you have to be organized. You have to be calm. You have to have your emotions in check. And you have to understand what you're there to do, like in the lead up to the fight, on fight night, etc. I'll tell you, my daughters, one is 3, about to turn 4, and one is 1, about to turn 2, like 1 and a bit, about to turn 2. They both both do the little grappling classes, and that you can see it on Instagram if you think. But yeah, they do their little grappling classes, and they also do gymnastics. And some of the parents at gymnastics were talking about how one of the teachers, or older ladies, a bit strict on the kids, and yada yada yada. In my personal opinion, the instructors are not strict enough. And I'm not going to bag someone that's trying to help my kids. I'm not going to do that. If they're hitting my kids or something, this is different. But because I want my daughters to understand that I like this coach, I don't like that coach, I have to do this, I don't have to do that. This person will allow me to do this person won't allow me to do that. And you have to learn these things. So they're going to react different. My eldest daughter is okay with that kind of coach. My youngest daughter, it marches to the beat of her own drum. Like, they're going to be different. They're going to be coached different. The way I speak to my kids is very different. I can be very stern. I can be very direct to my eldest, but I can't do that with my youngest daughter, because she will just walk off and not listen to me. My eldest will not walk off on me. My eldest will maybe argue with me. She's very similar to me. She'll argue with me. She might cry, but she's not going to walk off, and she's going to listen to what I'm saying to her, and she's going to do what I ask her to do. But she's going to have a say on it. My youngest one is like my wife. I talk to her and she'll just fucking be like, she won't argue with me. She'll just be like, fuck you, and walk off and not do what I ask her to do. My wife's not like that, but the personality traits are there. And so as a coach, you have to understand, like, you don't have to change to coach people. There's going to be people that you can't coach, or there's people that you're going to be able to coach for a portion of time and you're not going to be able to coach them anymore. And then there's people you can coach for 20 years and it's fine. You just have to be able to recognize that. That's a good question though, eh? Madara Achiha says, would Arman have a shot versus Islam right now if they fought, or has skill gap widened too greatly between them? What would be their respective advantages and disadvantages if they were to have a rematch? I mean, Arman's always going to be a tough fight, but I think that Islam's just really coming into his own, man. I don't know how much the skills have widened versus what they were back then. But back then, it wasn't really, this is how good each of us is. It might have been a shock to both of them how good the other's wrestling was, I'm pretty sure they both would have thought, I'm going to put it on this guy and that's going to be that. And then I think it probably surprised both of them, even though some got the better of it. Jordan Martinez says, seeing the level MMA has reached and continuing to evolve, is being a double champion the highest accolade a fighter can currently achieve? Somebody might be a triple champ at some point. You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying this will happen, right? And I'm not saying he would win. But let's say Pereira knocks out Jiri, knocks him out cold, gets the belt, right? And then goes, I'm going to go up to heavyweight. And he fights, for argument's sake, fights Aspinall, all right? Um, and Aspinall can't get him down, and Alex chins him. Maybe. Be hard to do. That would be interesting if someone could do that. John Wayne says, but it can happen with someone like, I don't think McGregor will do it now, even though McGregor could have been in a position to do it. But I think if somebody won a featherweight belt at a young age or any belt and then fought there's a lot of guys that fought at welterweight, right? Started their career young at welterweight or a featherweight, whatever, then did really well at the next weight division and won a belt and then went on and then finished up in the division above them. A lot of guys did that. Like you'd have to win a belt in the lowest division you can fight in. So say the argument's sake, McGregor, if he had won the belt in his early 20s, mid 20s, featherweight, and then straight away won a belt at lightweight, which he did, and then straight away, like relatively soon, went up to welterweight. If he had won that, then we'd be talking. You know what I mean? He could have done that, but it's fucking hard. It's hard. John Wayne says, with the dominant champs being finished recently, Usman, Valentina, Izzy, Sterling, and Volk, but Volk's still champion, dude. Volk didn't get finished at featherweight. Is it harder than ever to be a dominant champion? Also, who will eventually chin Islam, Wiley, and Volk? Well, Islam chinned Volk. I don't know with Wiley Zhang. It's hard. Women's lightweight divisions is very hard to predict something like that. Islam's been chinned by Adriano Martins. So all of those guys have been chinned. Joe Schmo said, but Volkanovski has not lost his dominant belt. He's still the champion. You got to remember that. Joe Schmo says, Fab with the ace take. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. That's very nice. Pepguard says, thoughts on DDP versus Sean being booked despite Dana promising Hamzat will be next. Is this a perfect example of never believing what Dana says? Well, in fairness, DDP should be fighting for the belt. He beat Rob. Like, fuck. You know? He beat one of the best middleweights to ever do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, how's that not a title shot? But I do think that what happened there with Hamzat was Hamzat didn't beat Usman the way that they thought he could. And then on top of it, he was injured. Mario Gomez says, which fighting style or coach is the best to deal with a Dagestani Sambo? I just think it depends who you're dealing with, dude. It's not so much a Dagestani Sambo. It's just like the level of fighters that you're dealing with. Because if you, like, say, for example, there's a lot of Dagestani Sambo guys that don't do that well. Like, just look them up. Like, there's heaps of Russian dudes like that have been in the UFC and bounced. Like, there's heaps of them that are all over the world fighting. There's heaps and fucking heaps and heaps of them. So it's not so much that, man. You're just looking, because you're looking at Islam, but Islam is a good fighter. You're looking at Khabib. Khabib's a good fighter. If Khabib had grown up in the US doing folk style wrestling, he would still be doing exactly that to people. He'd still be destroying people. So I don't necessarily think it's that, you know. And when the guys, you gotta remember this: those guys that are doing Sambo, they all wrestled it. They all wrestle. A lot of these guys wrestled up until they were 15, 16. They can't make the Russian national team and they switch to Sambo, or they were in judo. And this is not, I'm not taking the piss out of them, because making the Russian national team in judo or wrestling is you're fucking good, dude. If you do that, if you make the Russian national team in wrestling, you're meddling at the Olympics. Do you get what I mean? Like, you're meddling. And generally, the Russians that don't win a gold, it's seen as like, fuck, you fucked it up. You know what I mean? Dylan Crozier says, did you already give your thoughts on Deshaun Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis? I did, man. If in a nutshell, my pick would be Strickland, if Duplessis can't get him out of there early, I think Duplessis is going to look good, fast, and strong, and he's going to get a lot of his game off in the early rounds. But I think it's going to be hard to do that to Sean for 5 rounds. Kenzo says, do you think there will ever be a fighter crowned as the GOAT definitively? No. Because it's hard, man. You compare people outside of your era, you know what I mean? It's very, very hard. Like if I followed basketball, right? And I say to people go, who was your favorite player, blah, blah, blah. Like, of course, it's Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, all these talks. But if you say, for example, Joe Dumars, if you don't know who Joe Dumars is, you don't know, right? You don't probably never followed basketball. But that guy was a phenomenal player. If you say John Stockton to people probably don't know who they are. It's just if you say Oscar Robertson, people don't know who that is. Earl the Pearl, like there's so many good players, but if they weren't in your era and you didn't witness them, how would you say? Nick says, if this wasn't Fab, I'd assume this was clickbait. Laugh out loud. What? Why is it clickbait? You are free to talk about whatever you like, my friend. How dare you, Nick? Dylan Crozier says, what's your thoughts on Lopez versus Sabatini, and what about the main and co-main event this week? Also curious about your thoughts on Benoit Saint Denis versus Frevola. Man, I don't know enough about those guys to give a proper answer other than I think that... Now, I wouldn't be able to give you a good thing. I think Lopez is good and someone to watch, but I wouldn't be able to give you enough to be like, this fight, I'm really pumped about this and da-da-da. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of bullshit where I'm just making stuff up. I know who they are, but I don't know enough to be like, I have these thoughts on these fighters like that. Nick says, this is Nate versus Wilder in MMA. I'm all for it. Man, I read about that and I thought, no, this needs to be discussed. Because Deontay Wilder said he wanted to fight Nate in MMA, and Nate Diaz agreed to the fight. He said, yeah, I'll fight him. But I don't know what's happened thereafter. Max Jamil says, Artem Lobov sued Conor McGregor for millions over Proper 12 whiskey. I feel bad for Conor because Conor stood up for Artem when Khabib slapped him back in 2018. Thoughts? I don't know what happened between... This is something you have to understand, dude. You don't know. You know when people split, like teams split and this and that and the rest of it and that, you don't know what happened. You have no fucking idea what's happened between people. And for Artem to be suing him over Proper 12 whiskey, I don't know what happened. I don't know. You only read what's in the tabloids and that, but you know, you got to understand there's like second, third, fourth, fifth parties involved in that. Like there's people pulling strings, having stuff to say. There's like, so when you see that, like you don't know what happened. I don't know. I have no idea what happened between them. I think that even then the problems with Artem and Khabib and co would have been from Artem sticking up for Conor as well. Like, so it's like a thing. Like, I don't know. When shit happens between people like this in business and all of that, I'm telling you now, you have no idea what happened. You have fucking zero idea. The same way, man. Like, you know, people talk about like, I don't know, in someone, you don't know what happens in someone's relationship between closed doors, man. You have no idea. You have no idea. So you just better stay out of it. Max Jamil says, last year, Lobov betrayed Conor by suing him over Proper 12 whiskey. Thoughts on this, considering Conor flew to Brooklyn? That you just asked the same thing, eh? Like I said, like I don't know. I don't. And Conor also got, I don't think, it's not even so much I'm going to fly over there to, man, I was actually there. I was in Brooklyn when this happened. I was in Brooklyn when this happened, there in the hotel. I was there. And you got to understand, dude, that's also like massive for Conor, massive for his brand. That's all anyone talked about. That's what the UFC used to promote the fight. So I wouldn't say he just did it to save Artem. You know what I mean? Artem was well and truly saved. You know, he was fine. He wasn't going to get killed. So I don't like, that's like kid stuff. You know what I mean? Like he did this for the, I think that these two guys both were in some sort of business. arrangement together or ideas were exchanged. And yeah, so I don't necessarily know. I don't know what happened between them, but I don't think that Connor was completely benevolent in it. And I don't think that Artem would have been either in their relationship. So I have no fucking idea. None, zero. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what their relationship is. Nathan Gorman says Tony's never been the same after Justin Gaethje battered him in 2020. Man, he wasn't the same before that. Dillian Crozier says, Nick, it's boxing, I think. No way it's boxing, dude. No way. Fucking Nick Diaz is going to box fucking Deontay Wilder. No. It was Deontay Wilder said he was interested in fighting Nate Diaz in MMA. And I was like, well, this will be fucking interesting. Jordan Martinez says, when Kevin Lee was in the UFC, he would always call out Khabib. How would that fight have gone? I feel like a strong, aggressive grappler would have given problems to Khabib. Yeah, like I think that styles make matchups, and I think that I don't know that Kevin Lee would beat Khabib. That's the truth, because Khabib could do that for round after round after round after round after round. And Kevin Lee never struck me like that. But he was definitely a big, strong wrestler, and he's a big guy. I've seen that guy in real life as well. He's a big, strong wrestler, good wrestler with really good submissions. He could definitely put Khabib in bad positions, I believe. And it's not like Khabib would have had necessarily the better. I think Khabib would have had the more fluent striking, out of the two. Like, not necessarily the tidiest striking, but I like Khabib. The striking would have been, what I'm trying to say is the striking would have been whatever, you know what I mean? It might have ended up being a bad striking match. I don't know. But I definitely think that Kevin Lee, someone that could have put offensive wrestling pressure onto Khabib that not many people could. I definitely think that would have been a fight that me as a grappling aficionado would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to have seen him the two of them grapple for sure, wrestle, fight, but it would have ended up grappling, wrestling, and striking. But I think Khabib would still get it done, but that would have been a fight from that I would have liked to have seen. Dylan Crozier says, thoughts about Alex Pereira at heavyweight before, and he has a puncher's chance in my opinion, but there's definitely a size difference. But look at Jailton Almeida. There's definitely a size difference. Like, he's not a natural heavyweight. But if we're talking about right now, someone that I can think of right now off the top of my head, and I could be wrong, there could be others, but right now, off the top of my head, someone that could win 3 belts that is in a position where he might be able to do that, should he get past Jiri, would be Alex. He's the only one I can think of that he could potentially within a year and a bit, go up to heavyweight. Like, he needs to take the time, build himself up to that position, maybe take a catch weight fight or something like this, or fight a smaller heavyweight just to give him that time and not to be out. But I definitely think that he's someone that could walk around at fighting shape, right? Not people, he walked around at 235, but I'm talking about in fighting shape. He could definitely walk around at, 110, something like this. Yeah, for sure. 108, 106. He could definitely do that. He'd be on the smaller end for sure, but he wouldn't be like, nobody would be going, that's going to be a fun fight. This is going to be fun. Like, no. He wouldn't be an easy fight for anyone, and if he fought, I don't think John Jones would be a good matchup for him. Some of those big hitters would be a problem, but he can hit too, he can crack as well. So that'd be an interesting guy. Dylan Crozier says that night, that Nate chin is still pretty good, but I'm not sure if he could eat more than a few Wilder shots. In boxing, Wilder's fucking huge, man. Like, huge man. Like, that's not the same. In MMA might be different, but still, man, that fight I'd be interested in watching. Cooper Merritt says Alex Wade 210 in 185 fight. He's probably even bigger now, closer to 230 for most of the guys, dude. I can tell you this, like, most of the guys, when they fight almost at the next weight division, Alex might be a bit bigger, 210, yeah, but most of the guys that weigh in at 185, that's 83.9 kilos, are fighting at somewhere around 91 kilograms, 92 kilograms, which is around 205. So that's not that surprising. That's very normal. And Dylan Crozier says, that's what I'm saying to you. Like, it wouldn't be that scary. That wouldn't be that much of a thing, but it's not just weight. It's not like, I weigh 230, I'm a heavyweight. It's also frame and that. And he's one of the guys that's tall enough. Does he lose mechanical advantages? Does he, all of that stuff? Is he built like a heavyweight? He's not. Look at Pavlovic. He's built like a heavyweight. Look at Francis Ngannou. He's built like a heavyweight. You know what I mean? He's not built like that. But is he someone that can give it a crack? Yes, he is. Dylan Crozier says Jailton is a 205 that's doing a heavyweight run right now. For a bit, he was going back and forth, give or take. Yes, but Jailton is going to he's going to end up at heavyweight. Cooper Marion says, if Alex doesn't get laid on at heavyweight, I feel like his kicking game would ruin everyone. He'd give people problems, dude. But you got to understand, dude, the dynamics of these giant heavyweights, true heavyweights, are very, very, very different. John Jones took time to get that big as well, and he's already a big man. He was a big, big fellow to begin with. Dylan Crozier says he probably does have the best chance to have 3 belts. More work on the grappling. Yeah, look, man, I'm not saying he will, but if you're asking me off the top of my head, it's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to beat Jiri. Like, he might not beat Jiri, but if he does beat Jiri, he'd be the one guy right now that's in that position that I could go, maybe. Depends on who the guy is, depends on who's there. But it'd be hard, man. I can't look at him and go, geez, that fight with Pavlovic would be easy. Like, nah. Rob McKenzie says, greetings from WA, Fab. Greetings, sir. How are you? Dylan Crozier is smaller heavyweight, but his skill could make up size. Yeah, no, it could. And people are better. Like, the lighter weights are always better than the heavier weights. But there is a point, and no matter what your girlfriend tells you, size matters. It definitely matters, and he wouldn't be the bigger, stronger guy at heavyweight like he is at light heavy, or middleweight. Cooper Marion says, with Alex's luck, he'll somehow end up with a perfect title run at heavyweight right after winning this belt. Man, I'll tell you something. If he wins the belt at light heavyweight, if he wins the light heavyweight belt tomorrow and he wants a run at heavyweight, they should just give him a shot. Because if he does that, that would be like, the UFC would love that, dude. They'll love that. They'll market the shit out of that. Dylan Crozier says, odds on 205. I don't know exactly what you mean. Cooper Marion says, no USADA next year. We need Ubering version of Alex for a heavyweight belt. I would not put too much trust in USADA anyways. So that would be my thing. It doesn't, I don't think so. You just have to look at stuff, look it up yourself. I'm not saying USADA's dirty. I'm just saying to you, I only trust my mum, and that's not my mum. That's all I'm saying on that. Generally the lighter weights are better than the heavier weights, and so, but you have to make up for that size difference, and that's going to be tough. That's going to be very, very tough. I think also there's, like, I saw John Jones, like, I was thinking, nah, man, it's going to be hard for John Jones to go up to heavyweight. But John Jones took the time to get big, and heavy and strong. And he looks like a fucking gorilla, dude. Like, he looks crazy how big he is. And you see that thing of him and Izzy moving around, and you think about, like, they were talking about these two fighting on one stage. And I think Izzy said he'd follow him up to heavyweight, which is great showmanship from Israel, by the way. I'm not even bagging that. But I was looking at that and I was thinking, dude, if these guys fought, I would bet every single cent, dude. I'd break open my daughter's piggy banks. I'd steal from the neighbors' kids, whatever I have to do to put money on John Jones because he was enormous, dude. He was enormous. Both of these guys, by the way, had fought at light heavyweight. So if you can't get, like, if you're not that big and you're not that strong, it's going to be a real problem for someone to face someone like John Jones. You know what I mean? And Alex could do all of that. I don't know. I'd like to see him fight for 3 belts. Alex a favorite. I think it was like mine. I'll look it up now, but yeah, let me see. Bear with me, gentlemen. I saw it the other day, but I saw that Alex was a favorite. So now it's changed a little bit, but Pereira's minus 118 and Prohaska is minus 103. I'm very excited for this fight. You know, I'm very, very excited. But I think if Jerry can't catch him, Alex will beat him. But yeah, it's a crazy fight. Dylan Crozier says, I feel like Alex probably by KO, unfortunately, because Jerry always gets hit by the left hand in his fights. But obviously, Jerry could pull something out. He does keep the right hand low, and his lead leg is there to be kicked. And I think Alex, that's his jam, right? But having said that, you still got to go out there and do that to someone like Jerry. Cooper Marin says, robbing random citizens to bet on John Jones. The irony on that, isn't it? There's like a poetic justice to it. But yeah, I would bet. Like, it's those dudes are different. Like the heavyweight guys are just built different, dude. Like if you ever played rugby or rugby league, rugby union, any of those sports, football, like American football, any of those like collision sports, and you see, like you can be a big guy, like say in rugby league. I'm talking about rugby league or rugby union. You can be a big guy and you can be as heavy and you can be as strong as the props, right? You can be as big and as strong as the props. But if you're not built the way that they're built, you can't take the shots like they can. They're just built different. They're built for collision. They're not built for speed. They're not built for they're built for collision. Just the way their bone structure is made, size of their skulls, it's different. It's not just how much you weigh, etc. Cooper Marion says, I've got it like 70-30 Alex probably by knockout. The jury would not surprise me. Crazy stuff happens at 205. Yeah, and the heavier you get, the more those one shot matters. You know what I mean? They crack you and you stay cracked. So they're definitely there. And these guys are both heavy hitters, man. So I don't know. I tend to lean towards Alex, but Jerry can jump on him. Guys, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thank you so much for joining me today. And hopefully I'll catch you guys tomorrow for the stream. So join us tomorrow for the fights. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.